Alrighty everyone, let's get right into this part of the video where we talk about facts about Grover. We go over what the changes were, why they were good, why they were bad, why he's good, why he's bad, you know, what else he needs. So let's jump right into it. Let's talk about some Grover today. So first of all, Grover. He has been in the game for a long time. He's had multiple iterations. His first iteration, he was melee. It was pretty interesting. But he's had multiple iterations and changes over time. And honestly, they were for the better. One of the first changes they made to him was increasing his projectile speed on his axe. That was awesome. But enough with this history. Let's go right into him himself right now. Tree Man Grover, 2300 base HP. The highest for supports. Customized, I mean skins. These we don't really go over these, but they're nice skins. He's got a nice skin. This skin's okay. But let's talk about abilities first, and then we'll talk about loadouts and what I use for him. So first of all, what they changed about Grover, they removed efflorescence and put it into his base kit, the increased range by 50%. They did not increase his base passive by any, but they did increase his base range. So he still heals for 20 a tick, which equates to 80 health a second per ally, but he still heals for 900, but it's increased by 50%. And we'll talk about that, why that's important here in a minute when we talk about loadouts. But Rampant Blooming, let's talk about legendaries or talents. I say legendaries because they used to be legendaries, but they changed the name to talent. So if you ever wonder why I say legendaries, Rampant Blooming. Healing allies with Blossom will heal them for an additional 160 health per second for 4 seconds. This legendary has actually always been the better one. The big parts about this is when you heal somebody, you can walk out of the range and it continues to heal them. So you can heal them and then they go do their own thing. For 4 seconds, they get healed for 160. That's 640 health extra. That's huge. Plus the tick, plus the 900 burst, they are getting a lot of healing. Ferocity, I think this legendary could be good on certain maps competitively, but I'm not sure. It's pretty decent. Nothing wrong, nothing good. Deep Roots, it has its uses. I don't find it as useful, even though it's a CC meta. I don't find it that useful, but it's still, you know, it's all right. You know, it has its uses. Let's talk about his heal right now. So the biggest thing about Grover is his Blossom. It's a passive heal. When you have a passive heal and you have a healer that the heal is centered around them, they are here and there is a circle around them of the heal range. That's how Grover works. This next part we're about to talk about is huge. When a huge buff to Grover. Let's talk about loadouts. And I have multiple loadouts I want to go over, and it will be quick because even though there's a lot here, they're variants of one base idea. So let's talk about the speed build first. Unable to say loadout, got it. But Verdant Expanse. This card got a massive buff this patch. It didn't change. It still goes up by 10%, but with getting rid of efflorescence and putting into his base kit, Verdant Expanse is now not diminished off of that 50%. So the way it worked before is because you're using a talent to get an extra 50% and then a card to get more percent. Those two in the system and the algorithm, it's called diminishing returns. If you have two of the same things, as in Nimble, and say you have a movement speed card for Shaolin, you have movement speed in your cards and you buy Nimble. Those things, you cannot stack them. But with putting 50% increased healing, 50% increased range in his base kit, it does not diminish because it's his base heal. It's not a card, it's not an item, it's not an augment to what he does. It is what he does now, 50% extra, that's it. So this does not diminish, and the range is now huge. And like I said, with the heal being centered around him, that means he can position so much better and a lot safer for getting heals. Let's talk about this build. That's why Grover's insane. That's one of the main reasons he got buffed this patch. Verdant Expanse 5, Perennial 5, you will see these cards at level 5 in all of my builds. You want to get as many heals off as you can, and the range at 5. Now, Gentle Breeze, Adrenaline, and the DR card, I can't remember the name, are the 3 I have at level 3. So at speed, I run Gentle Breeze, Adrenaline 1, Barkskin 1. You can trade out the 1 point cards, but if you're using DR or speed, you should be running Adrenaline 1 for that extra 10%, a second off on an Elim. And Barkskin, besides Shamanic Might on Grok, this is the second best health card in the game. So this is the first build. Like I said, very quick. Perennial Verdant 5, Adrenaline 3, this is elimination's cooldown reduction build. This is more for when my team doesn't need speed and I don't need to help myself. I don't use this often. Bark Scan, and you can pick whatever 1 point you can here. Maybe you want to go Vine Grasp. Whatever you want to go, do it. This right here, this 1 point card is up to you. The third one is DR, Verdant Expanse 5, Perennial 5, of course, Unstoppable, that's the name. DR3, this is for more when you're playing against a lot of flankers and you need that extra help staying alive. You have Bark Skin 1 and Adrenaline 1. I think those should be your 2 1 point cards when using the DR or the speed build. Simple as that. You have Ferocity. This is the build I made for it while I was live streaming the other night. It could be better, I don't know, but this is the build I made. In the last part of this, let's talk about Grover's core cards. In any build, you should be running a majority of these. Gentle Breeze, Unstoppable, Perennial, Verdant Expanse, and Adrenaline. In order, I'd say Verdant Expanse and Perennial are your 2 majors, and then these 3 utility cards, you need to be running at least one of them. Again, you can change the points in your builds if you want, but these are the cards you need when you're running Healing Grover. Perennial, Verdant Expanse, and 1 of a Gentle Breeze, Unstoppable, or Adrenaline. It's vital. You have to. But that is really it for builds. Again, any questions anybody has, feel free to ask me in the comments about builds. I typically respond to them and answer them. I just sometimes forget to, and sometimes I'm busy and I don't. So yeah, that's that. Abilities, again, the Grover changes helped him overall. Some people thought it was a nerf, but no, it was a buff because they fixed the diminishing returns, and Rampant Blooming was honestly just better. Getting that extra healing on all your allies is amazing. But that is it for the more, I would say, factual side of the champion chat. But now let's get into the core, the meaty part, where I just sit here and I talk about what I think about Grover and what I think of him as a champion and where he fits in the meta. I will see you there. So Grover as a champion is amazing. I love the idea of him. He is I would say easy to get into because his heal is very basic. It's very easy to understand that you have a radius around you, you pop Q, you burst people up who are in that radius, and they get constant heals, and you just do damage during it. But he has a very high skill cap. When the biggest things about Grover that makes him a high skill cap is positioning, knowing when to get damage in your spam spots, knowing when to use your cripple properly, and knowing where to vine to get into certain spots to help yourself get out or get to your teammates. All these things are super important when it comes to Grover. He has been in and out of the meta competitively. Casually, I'm not sure where he's at, to be honest. But competitively, he has been in and out of the meta. He's had his issues. Different metas called for different things. Like, say, for instance, when Willow came into meta with her right, I don't remember the card, but burst on her right click, 800 burst, Grover fell out of meta because Grover's ultimate, when he ults, I didn't even talk about his ultimate in the factual thing. I don't know why, but when he ults, it's a whirlwind around you that does a lot of healing, and one dead zone just stops that ult from even working. It does nothing to your allies in it, or near it, or in it, or who walk it out, you know? So he has been in and out of the meta. Right now, he is in the meta. I feel like what they did with his diminishing returns was right. It should be that way because it shouldn't be diminished because they put it into his base kit. You know, I added a couple of the developers on Twitter and say, hey, this shouldn't be like this, right? And they're like, oh yeah, we'll look at it tomorrow. They looked at it, got it fixed. That was awesome. That really propelled Grover into where he is right now. I think there are some maps that he is not as useful on. I feel like tighter maps like Bright Marsh, Jaguar, Stone Keep, Serpent Beach, he gets more value on. Maps like Frozen Guard, Ascension Peak, Timbermill, he loses value because when, you know, of course the radius is big now, bigger, but it's still not Frozen Guard level where you can heal the whole map. Then you still want like a Damba for a hit scan heal, or a Furia, or Damba mainly. Damba's really good on that map. But back to Grover. That's why he's finding his way in the meta though. He got, a lot of people, I said this earlier, but a lot of people do think it was a nerf. It was a buff. 100% certain it was a buff. It sucks hearing that because you haven't, well, it really doesn't suck hearing that. That's weird to say. It doesn't suck hearing that. It's more of an educational moment. It's just like If anybody thinks Celestial Touch, Genos getting nerfed, Genos got nerfed, it's wrong. Genos got a huge buff because Luminary was better. Typically, the average player thinks that Celestial is better, but more at a higher level, you realize that Luminary brings a lot more value over time, and buffing your team's damage rather than getting that extra little bit of healing was so much better. But it's more of a teachable moment for me. I base this channel around teaching people, and it's nice to get these questions like, was this a nerf or buff? Awesome, let me explain this to you. It was a buff because Rampant Blooming did more overall healing when it comes to a situational. Efflorescence, all it did is help people get out of combat heal. Rampant Blooming has more now impact rather than over time impact. When I say now impact, I mean when you press Q, they are getting so much more healing and they are healing up faster. With Efflorescence, you just press Q, they got healed, and then you're just sitting there letting them heal. That's one of Genos' biggest issues, is people have to out of combat heal so much. But honestly, I love Grover as a champion. He's one of my favorite. Knowing when to use the Vine and how to use the Vine, like vining around the map, is so fun. Like without a doubt, if you learn how to use that Vine properly and know how to like Vine up to high ground, Vine up to low ground, Vine on corners to get around them, you can fly as Grover. It is so fun. And when you get to a stage where you Vine up in the air, say like Stone Keep, right? You're on point and you have people on top and bottom of like the keep side, the high ground side. You Vine up like in the middle of the wall and press Q, and then you get to your stairs, like growing to your stairs. Like, it's too hard to explain talking, but there are so many like intricate things about Grover using his Vine and popping heal. It's so fun to play him. If you don't play Grover, I would give him a try. In 2.01, it really helped him excel at, I don't think it helped him at a lower new player level, but it helped him at a competitive level. A new player level, I think it actually hurt him casually, or for newer or mid-tier players. I think it actually hurt him overall, but in a competitive standpoint, he got better. He's just easier to play. He's better to play in competitive now. But that's really it for Grover. I don't have much to say. I think the changes were great. I explained them really well, I think, in the factual parts and this part. So I hope you understand. Actually, one note for Grover is his ultimate. I think he has one of the best ultimates in the game, but it's very hard to use. Learning the timing on his ultimate and not having like a Willow Dead Zone counter it, or late game caught threes and you're not line of sighting while you're ulting, so you're not getting the healing, your teammates aren't getting good healing. It's a difficult ult to use, but it's super effective. But that's the last thing about Grover, because I haven't really touched his ult very much. Nothing was changed about his ult. Still the same old Grover. So it's really not a big deal. But that is it for those opinions. I hope you guys enjoy these champ chats. I enjoy doing them because I love just sitting here and talking about champions. I love giving my opinions on things, and I love hearing your opinions. It's very fun for me to read comments and see what everyone says about it. There's a couple of champions I'm very interested and I'm very excited to do champ chats on, which the next week or two, they're going to probably be out. There's going to be one champ chat on each champion within the next 2 weeks, because these are my favorite videos to do, but they're few and far between because it's not very often a sport gets a major change. So yep, that is it on Grover. I hope everybody enjoyed. I also hope you enjoy your day, night, evening, morning, dawn, dusk, or whatever it is where you live, and I will see you in the next one. Later. And a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters, Captain Splashclaw, Joseph Lavsa, and Joshua Blanchflower, and all others. Thank you so much.